Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, world? What's going on, boys?
What's up, guys? What's up, listeners?
All right, so today we're going to get into some of our guys that we're high on. We're going to preview tomorrow night's game, and then we're going to do some start-sit questions. But first, don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, rankings, and you could subscribe to our VIP content. This will give you access to DFS info and it'll keep you updated on the cheat codes, which we will update monthly. So check those out and also look for us on the Fantasy Life app. We'll be doing start-sit questions throughout the year. Also, if you want to enter into a FanDuel league with us, hit Stevie P up, in the comments section, or, hit us up on the website and, you can join a FanDuel league with us, $2 a person, nothing major. And you get to compete in the daily fantasy tournament with us. And if you're listening to the podcast, hit that subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating. So with that being said, let's get into the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
All right, so we're going to start it off with a bunch of players that did not practice on Wednesday. You got David Johnson, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, Christian McCaffrey, Sammy Watkins, Deshaun Jackson, and Chris Herndon. Chris Herndon obviously is the tight end from the Jets who is coming back from suspension, and he apparently messed his hamstring up running on his own this past Friday. Then you have the limited practice guys. So Tyreek Hill was back limited in practice today. You had Hunter Henry limited. He could be back from injury. Christian Kirk could be back after a 1 week practice. After that 1 week absence from his injury, he was limited in practice today. And in other news, you got T.J. Hawkinson is still in the concussion protocol. So there's going to be a little bit more time for him probably to get back out there. Philip Dorsett will be out, and Julian Edelman and Rex Burkhead are questionable for tomorrow night's game. Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Wayne Gallman are all out for the Giants tomorrow night. Kyle Juszczyk is going to be out 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL sprain. That could be big for that, San Francisco run game that looks so good on Monday night. And Jalen Samuels is going to be out a month with an injury. So that might upgrade James Conner, make him, a little bit more useful going forward. Anything you guys want to touch on in this that we can't touch on, as we go on?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So with that said, let's move on to tomorrow night's preview of our games. We got the Patriots and the Giants in what, if you just listen to our injury news, is going to be a snoozer.
Yep.
I mean, looking at it, from the Patriots' perspective, you're obviously starting Brady. I mean, unless you have a better starting quarterback, I know there's guys out there that probably drafted, Mahomes and Brady, or Deshaun Watson and Brady, Carson Wentz and Brady. I would rather start Brady this week, So more than likely you're starting Brady, especially in this matchup against the Giants. You're starting Sony Michel. Obviously, in this matchup, he's due for another big game, or definitely another score, because it seems like every time they play these bad teams, he gets into the end zone at least once. Obviously, you're watching Edelman, but more than likely he'll play. James White will be starting for you in PPR leagues, more than likely. Josh Gordon, probably a good flex option in this matchup. And that's pretty much it from the Patriots side of the ball. I don't think there's anybody else. And from the Giants side of the ball, you're not starting anyone. Period.
Literally no one.
No one. So.
Yep. Jacoby Myers is somebody that I just wanted to mention because he should be getting the start if, tomorrow because of the what's his name and Dorsett injury.
Dorsett.
Yeah, there was the Dorsett injury, and he will be going up against DeAndre Baker, which I've been pounding the table for you guys to play your wide receivers against DeAndre because he is just not the greatest of the cornerback bunch. So yeah, Jacoby Myers is definitely a guy that in the preseason you saw Tom Brady looking at a lot. And, so they already have kind of a rapport. I think if Myers plays tomorrow and you need a, flex, I would definitely throw him in there. I think he has a great matchup and he could be good. And they run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets and they're not going to change that. So, Myers should see the field a whole lot on, tomorrow's game.
Yep, and he, like you said, he had that chemistry with Brady in the preseason, and even I've seen him in a couple games, and he looks like a very capable receiver. So he's definitely a guy. If I don't know how many people are starting Philip Dorsett, but I liked what I saw so far out of Jacoby Myers as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty much the breakdown on this game. There's not much more to talk about. The Giants are completely decimated on their side of the ball, and this is just not a good way to start off Daniel Jones' career because he has no chance out there with his 3 best weapons missing. All right, so let's move on to our high guys. We'll start with you, Dan. Quarterback, you have Kyler Murray.
Didn't throw for a touchdown last week, ran for one, but looks like he's getting more comfortable. And I think this is the week that we see, the Kyler Murray that we expected, number 1 overall pick. I know I'm going up against you this week, Kev, so you're probably hoping for maybe just an average day out of Kyler, not a bang-up day. But I think he's going to get 4 touchdowns, and I think, 300 and change, rushing and receiving yards, rushing and passing yards is definitely doable. I mean, just going off of what we saw last week and how much Houston torched this Atlanta defense and how, how pretty much everybody has been playing against this Atlanta defense. I don't think Arizona has to overthink it. I think they can just watch tape. They got a smart young head coach who's got this new system that he wants to really, throw out there. But, you got good players at the skills positions. You got a great running back. You got, Larry Fitzgerald. Super steady Hall of Famer. Just look at the tape from last week and just make your game plan a little easier. Don't overthink, and they should come out of this game with a win.
Yep, I agree. I like Kyler Murray this week. I think Atlanta's probably the best matchup you could possibly have. Their defense is a complete sieve. They just are allowing anything a quarterback wants. They're allowing, big plays.
They allow like 40 points a game or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're really bad. There's no other way to put it. So yeah, I definitely like Kyler this week.
Yeah, this is actually a good test for me for this air raid offense because if this air raid offense can't get off against the Falcons, Cliff Kingsbury might as well be fired now because it ain't getting off against anybody if it can't get off on the Falcons. I'll go next up. My guy that I'm going to bring up is Kirk Cousins. I hate it, but Kirk Cousins just destroys the Eagles. He really does. When he was in Washington, he, literally would just go crazy on us. I think I saw it today. It was like, over his career, it was like 5 touchdowns and 15 touchdowns and seven interceptions. He's got a 5-3 record against us, and he has a 101.2 quarterback rating. This coming into this, this season, he obviously has better receivers out there than he had in Washington when he used to play us. He has a better running back than he had in Washington when he played us. So, to me, I know Kirk has not been the greatest of quarterbacks this year, but I'm not getting too excited about our Eagles defense after watching the Jets last week because Luke Falk literally couldn't throw. I can throw better than Luke Falk. So Luke Falk is not a good test for any defense. I think Kirk Cousins comes out and really takes an advantage of a depleted secondary that the Eagles have.
I could definitely
And is a
see
good
it.
streaming option. Good streaming option is Kirk Cousins this week.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Like Kev said, the Eagles' defense has been rough.
All right. So, Steve, you are up. You got Russell Wilson up there.
Yep. So Russell Wilson is looked like the MVP so far this season. I think that just looking at the matchup, Cleveland is not a scary matchup to me. I think, especially because Russ is an animal. You know what I mean? He's just been basically doing anything he wants on basically every defense he's played so far. So to me, there's not a matchup that I'm worried about. I like across the board. I like Metcalf against Carey. I like Lockett against Murray. I even like Brown against Mitchell. So for me, I'm not especially because Ward is still out. God knows when Ward is coming back. That would change, my mind if Ward was to come back in this game, but I haven't heard anything about him coming back. I love Will Dissly this week also. I think he's going to have a big game. We saw what, George Kittle did last week. Not saying that Dissly is as good as Kittle, but Dissly has proven that he's pretty damn good. So, I think Russell Wilson is going to have a field day against these Browns. And like I told you guys in the beginning of the season, I think that the Browns are a team that everybody's going to get they're going to get everybody's Super Bowl game because of all the trash that was talked in the beginning of the season about them being a great team, a Super Bowl possible team, and blah, 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 blah. So everybody's coming out and smashing them as hard as they possibly can. And, they haven't been able to stop anybody. So I'm loving Russell Wilson this week.
Yep. I'm loving Russell Wilson every week the way he's playing right now. I don't care if it's Cleveland Browns. I don't care if it's the,
Bears.
Bears defense. I don't think anybody's stopping Russell right now. Steve, why don't you keep it going? Your running back is Mark Ingram.
Yeah, the Bengals. That's literally, it. If you go on our website and you check out our matchup. We basically have a matchup breakdown, who has good matchups, who has bad matchups on the website. If you go to that on the website, it basically tells you the numbers. It's under the is my matchup good tab. You just click on whatever position you're looking at. And this week, if you look at what Cincinnati has been doing, they're giving up 38.9 points to the running back position. That's almost 3 points more than the second place team in Miami. They are just giving up a ridiculous amount of points to the running back position, and Mark Ingram is going to have a field day all day. He's, I wouldn't be surprised if he hit 102 touchdowns in this game. It wouldn't be surprising to me. So look for Mark Ingram to eat. If you have him, be happy because he's going to do his thing this weekend.
Yep, and I hope he does. I have him in 2 of my money leagues, and I'm expecting that as well because Cincinnati has just been, they've been destroyed by everybody on defense. I'm going to go with my running back, and it is Chris Carson. Chris Carson, you saw – all right, I'll just start it off by saying you saw what the 49ers just did to the Cleveland Browns defense rushing the ball. They literally went over 225 yards rushing in that game. I just see Chris Carson doing, I don't want to say similar. I don't think he's going to go rush for that many yards, but I can see Carson going for $125 and 2 touchdowns. It's not out of this world to think that. Outside of that, he's been being used a little bit more in the passing game this year. I just like what I've seen in the Carson in this matchup, with the Browns being the 27th ranked defense against running backs in fantasy. I just think that makes for a good matchup for Chris Carson. All right, so Dan, you are next up, and you have Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you gotta make these calls sometimes. Um, if he's gonna have any good game this year, it's got to be this one. They're home. I mean, they're calling it like the toilet bowl, basically. Washington and Miami.
It's the first overall
Uh,
pick bowl.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Redskins they got their quarterback. I read today that they said that Haskins may not be ready till 2021.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that as well.
That's
They're
crazy.
saying it. They're saying he's so broken physically or emotionally or whatever.
That they might not even play him until like next. They might just bench him next year and try to put like a veteran in front of him so he can watch the game. But going back to Kenyon, yeah, I just think that I think that this is a perfect game for him. I know Miami's horrible. Miami's offensive line is bad, but finally you got bad versus bad. I think he's going to see a lot of work, and I could definitely see 20 plus fantasy points from him, a touchdown. I don't expect this one to be a high scoring game, so I'm not going to go out on too much of a limb and say 30s, 40s, but I definitely think it's going to be a notch up from what we've gotten from Kenyon from the first few weeks.
Yeah, if they decide to use him, I do like Kenyon Drake this week. Especially, he's definitely a guy in daily that you can look at. He's like $4,400, I think, on DraftKings, and with this matchup, it may not be a bad idea to throw him in there. I'll start off the receivers. I got Terry McLaurin in there. I know we haven't seen good old Scary Terry for a couple weeks. He had the injury, and then last week wasn't the best week, but he had a tough matchup. Washington went up against the Patriots and just got obliterated. This week, he has a much better matchup in Miami, and he also seems like he's getting Case Keenum back, and I love that because you saw what kind of connection him and Keenum had in week, the first couple weeks of the season. I think Keenum kind of got a quick pull. Honestly, I don't think really he was that bad. I think that he had one bad game against Chicago where he, had three or four turnovers, I think it was. But in the game, he also threw for over 300 yards and tried to lead them back at the end of the game. The next game, he comes out, overthrows a guy twice because he didn't have his best weapon, Terry McLaurin, out there, and all of a sudden he gets pulled. I mean, I don't think Keenum was really playing that bad, and they tried to spin it off like a foot injury, and I don't know. To me, I think Case Keenum is the best quarterback on the Miami or on the Washington Redskins roster, and I saw what kind of chemistry him and Terry McLaurin had, so. I'm really excited to see Terry McLaurin get back on track this week against Miami. Steve's over here making free agency moves as we podcast.
I am. Yes, I am.
All right.
I need a wide receiver bad.
All right. You need a wide receiver bad? Why don't you talk about your wide receiver then, Julio Jones?
Love Julio this week. It's just. I mean, I know he's been bad the past.
You guys be any more obvious?
Yeah, I know, right? I'll tell you what. He has been really, really bad the past 2 weeks, and I know, everybody who drafted Julio is freaking out a little bit because how hot he started the first 3 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks he's been under, I think, 60-yard receiving in both games.
They're saying he's banged up too.
Yeah,
he didn't practice today. He didn't practice today. We just said that on the news. So
yep. Julio will be fine.
Yeah, he's playing. He always plays. He always never practices and always plays.
Exactly. Julio's going to be fine. And we have seen what this Arizona Cardinals defense has been. They've been in a crazy amount of points. You know what I mean? Just Julio, if this is not a get-right game for Julio, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? To me, I actually like both of these guys. I was kind of thinking that I would do Ridley, and then I was like, nah, I'm just going to stick with Julio because I think both of these guys eat in this game. I think Hooper eats in this game. I think Jones eats in this game. I think Ridley eats in this game. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a huge game in this game. And, the over-under in this game, it's the second highest of the week behind only Kansas City and what else Kansas City playing? It's like a ridiculous. Oh, Texans. It's Kansas City and the Texans, and then you got Arizona and the Falcons right behind them. It's a 52 over/under. The Kansas City game's a 56 over under. Anything over 50 that Vegas is saying is going to be huge. So, this is a get right game for Julio. 100 and a touchdown, I think is, just another walk in the park for Julio in this game.
Yeah, I mean, against Arizona for sure. Dan, you're up. You got DeAndre Hopkins.
I like Hop this week. The Chiefs, as good as they are on offense, we saw this past Sunday night, that they can be beat, and their defense is very, very suspect. So I think Hopkins, he hasn't been the Hopkins that he hasn't been horrible. I think he's probably ranked somewhere in the 20 range, 15, 20. So he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been Mike Evans bad, but he hasn't been great. I think this is the week that he really has a huge game. I mean, I think he did have 2 touchdowns in week 1. But I think this is a week that he bounces back. And I think that, I like these big games, these games against the Chiefs, because normally when you have 2 offenses that, Chiefs looking to bounce back after they just completely laid an egg last week, and Texans had a huge monster game. So I think they keep the momentum going. I like you just said, Kev, high. I mean, Chiefs are always the highest over under. They're always going to be in the 50s just because of the potential of what they can do. So I think if this one lands in the 50s, the point score is going to mean touchdowns, and I like Hopkins to be on the end of some of those 1, 2, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you both are on the right track. I mean, Hopkins, this week they got a great matchup against Kansas City. We just got done seeing Will Fuller go off, and I think it's Hopkins' turn. I mean, he's due. He's really due.
I really do think they're going to make it a point to get DeAndre Hopkins going in this game.
I actually really like the stack, the DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson stack in daily this week. Yep. All right, so let's move on to tight ends. Dan, why don't you start off with your tight ends? You got Will Dissly. Steve talked about him a little earlier. Why don't you elaborate even further?
Yeah, I mean, Steve basically, said why we like these Seahawks players this week. It's a great matchup. And Dissly's just been he's been Russell Wilson's most consistent, threat. Obviously, Lockett is the number 1 receiver. Lockett is the deep threat. Lockett's the touchdown threat. But Dissly seems to be the guy that is his safety blanket, is his comfort guy. Before this year, no one really even knew who he was, and he's turning out to be, he's going to be a tight end 10 this year. He'll finish in the top 10. And just anybody in that system with Russell Wilson, as accurate as Wilson is, and as much as Wilson can extend the plays, and they always kind of like the tight end position too. So Dissly is he's a great player for Russell to have, and I think he definitely has a great game this week. The Browns are just bad. I mean, the Browns all around, they're a train wreck. They're a mess. All those stars on offense, but their defense is really, I mean, we saw the 49ers torch them on the ground, but the Browns get beat both sides. They get beat, air and ground. And I think that, and I think the over, or not the over, and the spread is really close. I think actually the Browns might even be like -1 or 2, but I think that Russell and Will Dissly both have big games.
Yeah. All right. So, Steve, why don't you get into your tight end, Greg Olsen?
Greg Olsen. I know people are probably pulling their hair out over what Greg has been doing the past couple weeks. Last week, he got you a donut. So, believe me, I understand that it is very hard to sit there and tote Greg Olsen. But I am going to do just that. I am a fantasy analyst, and I am supposed to tell you guys what the deal is. And Tampa Bay has been terrible against the tight end position. You know what I mean? It's simple as that. When you look at the, like I said on the website, you go to your matchup and try to find out what guys have the best matchups. And when you look at the tight end position, Tampa Bay is giving up 19.6 fantasy points per game to the tight end position, which is second in the league. The only team giving up more is Arizona, and they're giving up 27.8. So, it's as simple as that. And when you look at it, they already played Olsen. He had a good game in that game. So it's not like, it's going to be a huge surprise if he goes off. He had a good game the last time they played. So, and it's not like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have played some, really, really great tight ends. They played Kittle. They held Kittle that first week. You remember he had those 2 touchdowns they called back, against the Panthers. Greg Olsen had 100 yards. I think it was 5 catches for over 108 yards on them the first time they played. Obviously that was with Cam, but, he still had a huge game. And then, Falcons killed them. You know what I mean? So not the Falcons, the Giants, Evan Ingram killed them. And then the Rams, Gerald Everett killed them. So, it's just an ongoing theme. Greg Olsen is going to do his thing in this game. And if the Carolina Panthers are smart, they're going to feed, Olsen in this game, knowing that Tampa Bay can't stop the tight end.
All right. And my guy is Austin Hooper. You just heard Steve say that Tampa Bay is second to last behind Arizona, and Arizona is last. And that's who Austin Hooper is playing. Every tight end eats on Arizona, period. End of story. So, I don't think I need to expand any further. We beat the Arizona, matchup for tight ends. We beat that drum kind of hard so far this season. And, this week is no different. Austin Hooper, he's been a beast all year. I think he's currently like the number 2 tight end in fantasy. I know he was at one point. So, yeah, I think that Hooper is definitely going to eat this week.
Definitely.
All right. So that's pretty much it for our, our high guys. We've done our, everything we needed to do in this podcast except our start sit questions. So, Steve, you got those all dialed up. Let's go.
All right. So Hayes30 asks, James White versus Eckler, rest of season, PPR.
PPR, I'm going to still say Eckler.
Yeah, James White really hasn't been the James White we're used to seeing. They're spreading it around way too much to everybody. They even had Bolden in there last week. And I still think until Gordon, comes back to, his normal, and even after that, they're still going to use Eckler. Eckler's been amazing this year. He's been really a incredible surprise. I don't think they're just going to put him on the shelf.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way on this one, fellas. I do like James White rest of season. We all know that James White is better in tougher matchups. The Patriots have had some really, really good, easy matchups to start the season. They had the Steelers, Big Ben was banged up. They had the Dolphins, they had the Jets, they had the Bills. The Bills gave them a whole lot of trouble. James White had a big game in that game. The Redskins, they killed them. They play the Giants this week. They play the Jets next week. Then they play the Browns. But then after that, it starts to get a whole lot tougher. They play the Ravens. They play the Eagles. They play the Cowboys. They play the Texans. They play the Chiefs. So, for me, it's a 5 or 6 game stretch of just good teams. When they play the Browns 3 weeks from now, the Browns could have figured it out. Maybe the Browns are a little bit better in that game. So the Patriots end up having to use White a little bit more. So for me, I think, with the tougher matchups coming up, I think James White is going to be a whole lot better and a whole lot more used in, closer matchups. Patriots won't just be trashing every team they play.
All right.
All right. So I'm just going to say Ryan Fantasy Football because this dude is FTSE, FFBL. It's fantasy football. Ryan Fantasy Football asks, pick 2 PPR, Cooks, Galladay, Hopkins, or Thielen. Now, the reason I put this question on here is because if you drafted DeAndre Hopkins and you are asking whether to start him or not, trade him. Just get him off your team. don't sit on him. Trade him. If he's not in your starting lineup every week, don't ask us this question. Just
All
trade
right,
him.
so you said Cooks, Hopkins.
Yeah, Cooks, Galladay, Hopkins, Thielen. I understand
Hopkins for
Cooks.
sure.
I understand Cooks, Galladay, Thielen.
How many are you starting?
Two, right?
2 PPR.
2?
Yep.
In this week, I'm actually going to go with Hopkins and Thielen.
Yeah, that's me too. I just think that that Eagles secondary has been very, very, very weak at times, and the Packers secondary has been great. So just matchup wise, I think moving forward,
Mari Cooper just went for 223 yards. So,
Exactly.
Galladay will probably see Jari Alexander, but
they did get 3 picks on Dak. It would have been 4, but that 4th pick they got on Dak was in the end zone.
It should have been 5. It should have been 5 picks in that game. I watched that game. That was terrible. Dak was really bad in that game.
Problem is the picks don't count towards the wide receiver. But still, I like Thielen's matchup too much.
But I agree with you.
Against the Birds.
Yeah, Hopkins, Thielen's for me also. I like Galladay. We don't even know if Cooks is playing. Cooks might actually not even play in this game. He's still, from what I understand, in the concussion protocol. So,
he's on the 5th step. He's got to pass that 5th step to get cleared. But
yeah,
I think he was limited in practice today.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Cooks. But Galladay and Thielen is the question for me, and like the guy said, I'm going to win Thielen. All right, so Rodgers 12. I wonder who he's talking about. Jared Goff or Minshew?
Ooh.
Yeah, this is actually a good one. I wrote this down because I like this one. For me,
I might be starting Gardner Minshew. Man.
I think I am. I know it's the Saints, and I know it's a tough matchup, but
San Fran's a tough matchup.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, San Fran ain't no joke. And the Saints do give up passing yards. They've been giving up passing yards all year long. So it's not like the Saints are, they're a great run-stopping team, but passing team, I think DJ Chark and Minshew have a good game in this game. So I'm going to go Minshew.
I'm actually interested to see that DJ Chark, Marshawn Lattimore matchup because I'm almost certain that's who it'll be. He'll be on. And I think that's going to be really, really, really good matchup. We've seen DJ Chark last week. We talked about how, this is, is he for real? This is when we really find out if he's for real because we just saw Marshawn Lattimore throw Mike Evans a donut. So, DJ Chark this week, he has a really tough matchup. It should be fun to watch that matchup.
And real quick, guys, I just want to mention this. So, Mike Evans has historically had bad games against the Saints. So, I don't know if it is a Lattimore issue because Lattimore hasn't been good this year. Like, if you look at his numbers, he's given up.
He has not been good.
Yeah, he's been giving up some numbers. So, I think this was just a, Godwin had the better matchup in P.J. Williams, and he just decided I'm going to hit Godwin a whole bunch of times because P.J. Williams is hot garbage. My man is sucky butt. Like, so let's just target the guy who can't cover. You know what I mean? I think that was more of the case than it. He only got 3 targets. I mean, if we were talking about 8 or 9 targets and he was, donutted on 8 or 9 targets, then we got to talk about something. But 3 targets, like I don't even think they decided to even go that way. They were just like, you know what? We're just gonna go to the easy side.
Our podcast has to copyright sucky butt right now.
I like.
Never heard that before in my life. So officially copyrighted.
I'm gonna go with Goff on a bounce back game.
I like your thought, Dan.
Goff on a bounce
Goff
back.
on a bounce. Yeah, he's got.
I hope you're right, Dan.
Yeah, no, I'm going Minshew. It is what it is.
Yeah, I had Jared Goff in the matchup that I'm going up against Dan, in which he has Kyler Murray. So I hope he's right.
Yes. And
All
I
right.
hope I'm wrong.
And I put this question in actually right after the Minshew question because we were talking about Chark. Chark, Thielen, non-PPR.
Nah, I'm still going Thielen.
Yeah.
Thielen's got way too good of a matchup this week. Trust me. The Eagles shut down the run. So Dalvin Cook, do not look for a big Dalvin Cook game this week. I would be looking more for the Vikings to have to use the air to be successful. And, it's easy. This is how you don't beat this is one of those matchups where if Mike Zimmer and that offense, he's a defensive guy, but, he goes in thinking he's going to, set his tone there, he's got to change his game plan up this week. Like, I understand he wants to run the ball, run, and, keep his defense fresh. But this isn't the matchup to do that. This is a matchup where he has to kind of jump on Philly and, get up kind of and let his defense, handle Carson Wentz in the offense because, hey, you don't beat Philly on the ground. You beat Philly through the air.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, we already talked about Thielen on the last question, and for sure.
Thielen and Chark we've kind of beat the drum on those two guys the last couple questions.
All right, so the next question, we talked about Cousins a little bit, and it is Cousin or Winston this week.
Oh my God, Jameis. Who's Jameis playing? Jameis Cousins. Winston is playing.
I'll tell you right now. It is the
Panthers.
Yep.
Panthers. If I recall, Jameis didn't have the hugest of games in week 2. I don't think it was terrible, but I don't think it was bad.
Yeah, it was like 240 something and 2, I think.
Wow, they're playing. I just realized that they're playing the Panthers. Both of their games already through week 6.
He had 208 yards and a touchdown, no picks. He wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either.
And that was in Carolina.
This week will be home, but I honestly I think I would go with Cousins. We saw last week he seemed like he was kind of getting back on track. Thielen kind of got him going last week, and this week I think they, like I said, I'm just going to keep it going. I think Kirk Cousins is going to wind up as a top 10 quarterback this week.
Yeah. I would like to go Winston just because I like Evans and Godwin in this game. I think Evans is going to get a whole bunch of targets, especially because of him getting skunked last week. I think Winston is going to try to give him some love, but like Kev said, it's really hard to go against Cousins going up against the Eagles. I don't think Cousins has a huge game because, just that's not the offense that they're in, but I do think that he has 250 and 2, and I'm not sure if Winston is going to get to that mark.
And that's what I'm saying. If they go in thinking that they're going to run the ball and that's how they're going to win the game, Vikings are going to lose. Yeah. Like, this will be the definition of Mike Zimmer as a coach, because you got to be able to adjust
run the
to your
ball no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. You got to adjust to your matchups. They're not going to, if they think they're going to go in and run Dalvin Cook to a win, they're not going to do it against this defense. That's not what happens against Philly's D.
The one thing I will say though, when they played the Bears a couple weeks ago, they did come out throwing in that game. So I do think they have to realize that the Eagles' defense, it's better than the Chicago Bears run defense. I'm sorry. I mean, the Chicago Bears are a great defense, and I give them that all day. But when you just look at pure, what these two teams are doing, the Eagles are a better run defense than the Bears are. All around defense, the Bears get that all day. But run defense specifically, the Eagles
are ranked number one. Yeah, the Eagles are ranked number one. Eagles are ranked number one in run defense. Actually, they had rankings today. Eagles are ranked number one in run defense. Patriots are ranked number one in pass defense. And who do you think is ranked number one in overall defense, if you had to guess?
Overall defense?
Yeah.
Overall defense.
Overall defense. Let me think here.
Total yards, you're saying? Or is
it was yard? It was Buffalo. Yep. It was Buffalo. I think they took. They took everything into consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Bills. Buffalo's ranked number one.
Yep. All right. So back to the question. Yeah. So with that said, I agree with you guys. I'm gonna go Cousins. I just think his floor is higher than Winston's floor, and I don't think either one of them has a huge ceiling. But I think like Kev said, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. Oh, let's see here. We have my man 99 wants to know if he should start Ridley, Mixon, or Tevin Coleman in his flex. Didn't give PPR or non-PPR, so we're just going to go with PPR.
Okay. This is actually a difficult one, honestly.
Yeah.
Mixon has a tough matchup. I mean, Ravens aren't necessarily good against the run, but they are good against. Or I'm sorry, Ravens aren't necessarily good against the pass, but they are good against the run. Tevin Coleman, we just watched that 49ers team, run through Cleveland, but they got a much tougher matchup with Aaron Donald and the Rams up front. Rams have been getting beat through the air more, I think, than on the ground. Although Carson did just go for 100 on them, so
yeah, he went for like 130.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna go Coleman just because I think the Rams defense has been they've been declining each week. They got the two stud corners that are getting burned. It seems like Darnold, being the big defensive tackle that he is, he doesn't really he's not a Fletcher Cox. He's not really a run stopper. He's always been get after the quarterback type lineman. So I'm gonna go Coleman. I like Coleman in this one. He looked really good on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm trying to see the numbers from last year. Because if I recall, I think the 49ers were able to run the ball against the Rams. But they're not popping up. See, I really like Ridley's matchup this week too.
I was thinking about Ridley a lot.
Yeah.
He's playing Arizona. I could see him getting in the end zone. This is one of those weeks he always does against a bad team. Every time they play a bad team, Ridley's in there. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like when Ridley blows up, it's normally against these bad teams, like Kev said.
Yeah.
It's just, and he has, 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdown games. So, okay. So if we're talking Fleur, I'm going to say, I'll agree with Dan and say Coleman because Mixon just has a track record of not playing very well against the Ravens. So I'm going to try to avoid Mixon this week. So if I'm looking for floor, I'll go Coleman, and if I'm looking for ceiling, I'll go Ridley.
I totally agree.
All right. So,
if you guys don't understand what that means, if you're looking at your projections and you're looking at like what could potentially be a loss, that's when you're going to go with Ridley. If you're looking at your team and you're looking at a solid win, then you'll go Coleman. It's all about what you need. If you need a potentially big blow-up game, Ridley's your guy. If you're looking for a guy where you can't have a 0, then you go with Coleman.
Exactly. All right, so Blimpy26 asks, Mike Evans or OBJ rest of season standard? To me, that's easy. I'm going Mike Evans.
Mike Evans,
I'm going Mike Evans. OBJ and this offense have shown me absolutely nothing. And this is the problem. This is the biggest issue that you're going to have with OBJ now. You can't trade him because people are going to give you pennies on the dollar for him. You're not going to get anything for him. Like, who the hell wants OBJ right now? He's not doing anything. He had that one game. And literally that game he had that was huge, he had an 89-yard touchdown. Like, if you take away that 89-yard touchdown, my man has 70 yards and no touchdowns. Like, literally, he's been the most overhyped. OBJ this year going to the Browns might be the most overhyped superstar going to a team of any I can remember and not panning out.
Overhyped free agent move ever.
Yeah, it's just
looking at. I mean, you think about it, this team was supposed. They were saying Super Bowl for this team.
Yeah,
Super Bowl. There's people that said Super Bowl.
He was oh my God! I heard this today. I can't remember what. I'm sorry, what podcast I heard this from. I would shout you out, but I cannot remember which one it was. But they were saying how Baker Mayfield was number 3 in Vegas to win the MVP.
Yeah,
number 3. Like, what?
That ain't working out too good. I hope. And you know how many people put money on that to happen?
Oh, yeah. Come
You
on,
know what I
dude.
mean? And it's just crazy, man. But Mike Evans is definitely. I mean, their offense is just clicking a lot more. And right now, the Cleveland Browns look like they don't know what the hell they're doing out there.
Yeah, I'm going to look this up real quick. Go ahead. Put your 2 cents in, Dan, because I'm going to look this up real quick. I want to look something up.
However, I do think the Browns right the ship a little bit. I just think it's too much of a train wreck there. I'm just not sold on just watching a lot of Baker this year. I'm just not sold on him that he's really an above average quarterback. And we all know OBJ is, but OBJ is getting blanketed every single game. And that's why the last couple of games, Landry's been able to get off a little bit. So I definitely think Mike Evans is going to be the right pick on that one. He's
real
already
quick, Dan.
got, yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, go ahead. I thought you
No,
were.
I'll just close by saying he's already got the chemistry with Jameis, and it's definitely more of a comfortable pick for the rest of the way for me.
Okay, so I am looking at ESPN PPR scoring. Mike Evans is the number 14 wide receiver in PPR scoring. That is after a donut. After a donut, my man is 14th. OBJ is in a top 50 guy.
He's not.
Nope.
Oh yeah, he can't come back from that. That's not even. Yeah,
Not even a top 50 guy.
Mike Evans by far, not even close. Next question.
No, hold on. I'm lying. I messed up.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Say,
OBJ,
whoa.
let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, he is 37th. 37th in PPR scoring.
Still low. Still
Yes,
very low.
still low. So he's not even a wide receiver 3 in total scoring. Mike Evans is 14. Like, for OBJ to... And this is the other thing. Listen to these matchups for Mike Evans, right? So me and Kev and Dan were all years have been pretty high on Mike Evans, right?
Yeah,
This is Mike Evans' rest of seasons matchups, okay? Carolina this week. Then they go on bye. Tennessee, tough matchup. Then it's the onslaught of just loveliness. Seattle, Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, Detroit, Houston. That's how he's going to finish his season. In those matchups, what pass defense, especially if Jacksonville doesn't get Jalen Ramsey back, what pass defense did you just hear me say that you're scared of? I'll read them again. Tennessee, tough.
No, I don't even need to hear it. I know it was. I'm not even scared of Tennessee against them, honestly, because I don't like Tennessee.
They don't got nobody to guard him.
No, they got no. I mean, Adoree Jackson's been good, but
and you can't double him because Chris Godwin is just going bananas this year.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I guess they play the Saints last week of season, week 17.
Houston. They play Houston week 16 and Atlanta. Yeah.
So week 17. Week 17 is the Saints.
No, week 17 is Atlanta.
So they have New Orleans again then.
Yeah, they play New Orleans this week, and then they play New Orleans week 11. So New Orleans is the only matchup that you're scared of. Tennessee, Seattle, Arizona. Love those three. Then New Orleans, he always has a rough game against them. But then Atlanta, Jacksonville to end the season, and then the playoffs, Indianapolis, Detroit, and Houston. Come on, dude. Really? And now I'm going to read you OBJ's. OBJ is in trouble. That whole team is in trouble. Listen to these matchups. This is, oh my God. Oh my God, OBJ is not going to do anything. All right, so Seattle this week. I'll give it. That's not a bad matchup, right? Then he gets a bye. Then they play New England, Denver, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Miami. You like those two. Pittsburgh again. Cincinnati, Arizona, Baltimore. So Arizona and Baltimore, we'll see. He didn't really do anything against Baltimore last time.
From week 12 to week 16, he could have, or week 11 to week 16, he could have a nice.
Yes, he could have from 11 to, I wouldn't even say 16.
3 bad matchups.
Against Baltimore, he had 2 for 20.
Yeah, true.
I mean, in your fantasy playoffs, you definitely in your fantasy first 2 games of your fantasy, the playoffs, you love that. Cincinnati and Arizona. But
luckily this one's at home. But
the next 3 weeks, I'll tell you what, I would try to buy OBJ the week that they play Buffalo. Try to buy OBJ the week they play Buffalo because no one is going to want to start him against Buffalo.
no.
You're right? So try to get him that week, and then you're going to get him and then when you get it week 11, you got Pittsburgh, Miami, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Arizona the next 5 weeks.
I love it.
Yeah, that's the best time to go get OBJ. Go get OBJ week 9. As soon as week 9's over, and he has a terrible game because Chris Harris is all over him. Yeah, I mean, just do your thing. Go get him. All right, guys. Last question. Last question of the night. Obviously, it's a tight end question because we didn't ask any. Rest of season and PPR scoring. Who should I keep? Hawkinson or Everett? Yeah.
Rest of season?
Yeah, rest of season. See, that one's a little bit rough. See,
That's tough because you don't know when Hawkinson's coming back.
Exactly. That's
what makes it hard. You know, if I knew Hawkinson was going to be back even next week, I'd probably say Hawkinson, but because I don't think Gerald Everett's going to be a long-term fix.
I don't think so
he just never was. He just never has been that. And they have way too many weapons. They're obviously going to start getting Gurley more involved. Cooper Kupp's going to take away. You know, Robert Woods is going to get better than he's been, and Brandon Cooks is going to get back and healthy. So I just can't see Everett's, production sustaining for a long term. But I mean, if Hawkinson don't come back till like week 11, like obviously Gerald Everett is going to outscore him. So
yeah.
It's hard to say. It's hard to really give a solid answer not knowing Hawkinson's, injury
Long-term
status.
health.
But yeah, if Hawkinson was coming back next week, I'd say Hawkinson.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's how I would attack this question too. So if he's saying Hawkinson or Everett, right? You have to assume he has a tight end, because he's saying rest of season. So he must have like a floater tight end that he's holding on to play this week and maybe next, right? So he's trying to figure out Hawkinson or Everett.
I don't know who the floater tight end could be if the other two tight ends are that bad. I mean, he might literally have. I don't know what he is. That is the definition of tight end wasteland right there.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah,
it really is. Oh,
if
man.
that's your tight end situation, give up for the year.
Yeah, for real.
Or trade one of your other players and try to get one of those stud tight ends and just.
Yeah, literally just stream.
You're better off. This is why we say it's better to have one of those tight ends that's at least going to give you 7 or 8 fantasy points because you have those two guys got a chance for donuts every week, and you're not winning with donuts on your team. So
yeah, so Gerald Everett, I'm looking this up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so Gerald Everett is the number 11 tight end in PPR scoring, right? I'm going to read his first 3 weeks. 1.7, 5.1, 3.5.
Yeah.
He had 3 weeks in a row where he didn't basically score more than 5.1 fantasy points. And he's the number 11 now because he had 2 big weeks. And they're not even big weeks. They're just good weeks. Against Tampa Bay, 5 for 41 and a touchdown. You'll take it. And then the past 2 weeks, basically, he's been getting targeted a whole lot more. Honestly, okay, so this is the other thing you have to remember. Against Tampa Bay, he threw, Jared Goff threw 59 passes, right? It was like, that's a ridiculous number of passes. And then against Seattle, he also threw 39 or 40 something? Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff in the past 2 games has more passing attempts than I think any quarterback combined. You know what I mean? It's insane. So yeah, Gerald Everett's just not a guy that I'm going to trust on a week, especially this week, against San Fran. The following week against Atlanta, he could be good. And then he's got another game against Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that everybody on the Rams has good matchups in those weeks too. So you just, don't.
Exactly.
I like I said, I can't see Gerald Everett just sustaining this production. I think it's more. I think it's more because Brandon Cooks was, unhealthy and, like I said, he has not produced this way. He had a couple good games last week, but nothing major.
Oh man, hold up real quick. Okay, so I have a look at these matchups, dude. So the Lions play. They got a tough schedule. Green Bay, Minnesota, New York. That's good. Oakland, Chicago, Dallas.
That's good.
No,
New York's
yeah,
good.
New York's good. Oakland is okay. Chicago bad, Dallas bad, Washington good, Chicago bad, Minnesota, Tampa Bay, Denver. That's a pretty tough schedule. There's like three.
That's really tough.
Yeah, that's really tough. There's like 3 games that I would feel confident starting TJ. So that just made it. That literally just made my
Yeah, probably
decision
Gerald
for me.
Everett. Just
Yeah.
Gerald Everett off default.
Default. Gerald Everett. All right. Anything to add, Dan?
Yeah, I actually was leaning towards TJ until you read the schedule. I don't like the fact that they got to go up against the Bears and Vikings twice.
Twice.
That's never
Both
good.
teams.
But
that's bad.
Goff's been looking for Everett a lot the last couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to just stop. And we got the Hockenson injury. Who knows how he's going to bounce back from that? So I think you're safer by going with Everett.
Yeah. Plus, Hockenson hasn't produced since week 1 anyway. He had one good week in week 1. After that, I've seen him throwing to Jesse James. They're using all their tight ends. So, yeah, I would just go Everett off default. But if that's your tight end situation, there's got to be somebody in your league that has 2 good tight ends. Maybe Will Dissly and George Kittle are in the same team. Try to trade for one of them, but do not think that Gerald Everett is going to be your saving grace at tight end.
Definitely not.
All right, guys. So that wraps up tonight's podcast. Remember, check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content, articles, blogs, player profiles, rankings, and you can subscribe to our VIP access. And don't forget about those FanDuel tournaments. And until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace.